My name is Holly Adler, and I was 33 the week my uncle decided a dead woman's signature meant nothing. 3 days after we buried my grandmother, we sat in her living room to hear her will. My uncle Raymond heard one line, laughed right in my face, and said it loud enough for everyone to hear. "A piece of paper won't stop me. That house is mine." He said it twice. Like if he repeated it, it would become true. 8 days later, he sued the estate. What he did not know, what he never stayed long enough to hear, was that my grandmother had already planned for that exact moment. And that mistake would cost him more than the house. Welcome back to Calm Drama Stories, quiet endings for people who were never the loudest person in the room, but were always the one who showed up. If you came for calm justice, you are in the right place. Leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe. Now let me tell you who I really am, because Raymond spent 5 months telling a courtroom a very different story. I'm a hospice nurse. I sit with people in the last rooms of their lives. I help keep them comfortable when nothing else can be fixed. I know how to stay calm when families break apart. I know how to speak softly when people are scared. I know how to hold a hand through the worst night of someone's life. I'm good at my job. I learned the hard way. I worked nights. I paid for my training one shift at a time. I took extra hours whenever they were offered. I said yes too often. Yes to double shifts. Yes to covering for other nurses. Yes to favors nobody remembered later. I was good at caring for people. I was not good at caring for myself. For years before all this happened, my grandmother's heart started to fail. Her name was Vivian Hartley. She was 80 when I moved into her Craftsman house on Linden Street to help take care of her. She was 84 when she died. That house became my whole life. The front porch had a small yellow light over the steps. Every night when I worked late, she left it on for me. I used to text her when I was driving home. She would text back one word. On. That porch light was her. It meant, I'm awake. I know you're coming. You're not coming home to darkness. People hear caretaker and think soft. Weak. Easy to push around. A person who gives and gives until there is nothing left. That was not true at work. At work, I knew how to set boundaries. I knew how to keep difficult families from crossing lines. I knew how to say no when a patient needed peace more than drama. At home, I never learned how. I let people take and take because keeping the peace felt easier than making trouble. I carried everybody. I made things smooth. I made things easier. Vivian saw that before I did. One evening near the end, she held my hand and said, "I made sure no one can take this from you." I thought she meant the house in a soft, dreamy way. Maybe the rocking chair. Maybe the little garden by the fence. Maybe just the feeling of home. I told her not to worry. I had no idea she had already spent an afternoon at a lawyer's office building something strong enough to outlive her. The rest of the family did not exactly disappear. They just never really showed up. My uncle Raymond, Vivian's son, lived about 40 minutes away. He came once or twice a year, usually near Christmas, usually for an hour, never long enough to be tired by the real work of loving someone old and sick. His wife, Lorraine, came with him. Lorraine had a smooth voice and sharp eyes. While I changed Vivian's blankets or brought her tea, Lorraine would look around the house like she was already inside a future open house. She ran her fingers over the banister. She asked if the roof had ever been replaced. She looked at the kitchen cabinets longer than she looked at Vivian. Their daughter, my cousin Brooke, came even less. But online, you would think she was the favorite grandchild. Every few months she would post a picture of Vivian and write something like, "Sundays with Grandma." Treasure these moments. The date stamp never matched any visit I remembered. The comments were full of hearts. Full of people calling her sweet. I never said a word. I just kept changing sheets. Filling the pill box. Writing down medications. Making soup. Keeping the house warm. There is one moment I keep going back to. It happened maybe 2 years before the end. Raymond stood in the living room with his phone out, pacing from one wall to the other. At first I thought he was texting. Then I realized he was measuring the room with an app, the way people do before they buy furniture. I watched him for a second. He caught me looking and grinned. "Just curious," he said. "For when it's mine someday." My grandmother was 6 feet away in her chair. She heard every word. She did not argue. She did not tell him to stop. She did not even frown. She just gave him a small, private smile, and went back to her crossword. At the time, I thought she was tired. Looking back, I know better. That smile was the first move in a game nobody else could see yet. In her last winter, Vivian got quieter. Slower. More careful. Some people get like that when they know time is short. They stop wasting words. They put their life in order with both hands. She had a brass house key on a faded blue ribbon. The ribbon had turned soft from 40 years of hanging on the same hook by the door. One afternoon she took it off the hook, pressed it into my hand, and closed my fingers around it. "This stays with you," she said. I tried to hand it back. "I have my own key." She did not take it. "You're not hearing me," she said. "It stays with you." I remember thinking she sounded confused, the way sick people sometimes do when the body is tired and the mind drifts. She was not confused at all. The next week, a car picked her up in the morning and brought her back before lunch. She had gone to see a lawyer named Walter Bell, a man she had known since before I was born. When she came home, she sat down with her coffee like the trip meant nothing. All she said was, "I made it so no one can take it from you. It's done now." I asked what she meant. She patted my hand and changed the subject to the hydrangeas. Would they come back blue in spring? Did I think the cold had been too hard on them? I let it go. That is something I still think about. I should have asked. But I was late for a patient that afternoon, and life kept moving. I dropped the brass key into the dish by my bed and forgot to be curious. Vivian did not need my help to protect me. She died on a Tuesday in early March, in her own bed, with the porch light on. I was holding her hand. By the standards of my job, it was a good death. Quiet. Safe. At home. No fear in the room. No panic. No machine screaming. But let me tell you something true. A peaceful death still hurts when it is the woman who raised you. I had helped strangers through that moment 100 times. I thought I understood it. I did not. I sat beside her for a long time before I called anyone. Then I made the calls, and family began to arrive. Within an hour, my grandmother's death stopped feeling like mine. Raymond took over the kitchen like he had been running the house for years. He gave orders about the funeral home, the obituary, the flowers. Lorraine moved from room to room with her arms folded, quietly counting value. Brooke posted a black and white photo with a sad caption before the day was over. At the funeral, Raymond gave a speech about a mother he barely visited. People cried. He shook hands at the door after, like he was the host of the event. I stood near the back. I was too full of grief to be angry yet. When grief first moves into a house, it takes every room. But under it, cold and quiet, was one fact I could not avoid. The house on Linden Street was the only home I had. My adult life had folded itself into those rooms. Into Vivian. Into work and care and soup on the stove and medicine cups on the counter and that yellow porch light waiting for me at night. Now she was gone. And the people walking through the house had not asked me one single time where I was supposed to go. I thought the hardest part was over. It had not even started. 3 days after the funeral, Walter Bell came to the house to read the will. He was close to 70, careful, soft-spoken, the kind of man who trusted words more than people. He wore his glasses low and read slowly, like every sentence mattered. We sat in the same living room Raymond had once measured. Bell started with the simple things. The estate was not huge, but it was real. The house on Linden Street was fully paid off. There was a savings account. There were old certificates of deposit my grandmother had quietly added to for years. Then he read the first big gift. The house, and most of the estate, went to me. Lorraine sucked in a breath. Raymond's face changed color. Belle kept reading, calm as rain. There was also a cash gift, he said, of $75,000 to Raymond Hartley. Then he read the next line. Slowly. Clearly. Any beneficiary who contests this will or helps anyone contest it shall take nothing under it, and their gift shall pass as if they had not survived me. He read that line twice. Because Vivian had told him to. But Raymond had already stopped listening. He heard the house goes to Holly, and after that, everything else turned into noise inside his own head. He shot up so fast his chair scraped hard across the floor. He pointed at the will like the paper itself had insulted him. That's a joke, he snapped. She wasn't in her right mind. That girl got to her. Then he laughed, ugly and sharp, and said the line that would stay in my head for 5 months. A piece of paper won't stop me. That house is mine. And then he walked out. He never heard the 75,000. He never heard the rest. He never heard the trap close. They came back that night. Raymond and Lorraine stood on the porch under the yellow light. Lorraine did most of the talking. She was good at sounding hurt and kind at the same time, like she was the wounded one and I was making her be cruel. We don't want to fight, Holly, she said. We just want what's fair. Fair, in Lorraine's mouth, meant this: I had moved into a weak old woman's home, kept family away, flattered her, pushed her, and walked away with everything while her own blood got scraps. You worked a dying woman, Raymond said from behind her. Everybody can see what you did. I stood in the doorway and did not let them in. My hands were steady. I noticed that almost like I was watching someone else. I took care of her, I said. That's all. Lorraine smiled like I had just proven something. You're not even a Hartley, she said softly. Blood is blood. You're an Adler. That was true in the plain family tree way. My mother had been Vivian's daughter. My last name came from the father who left when I was small. To them, my last name was the whole argument. To me, it was just a name. I told them good night and closed the door. That same night, Brooke started a group chat with around 30 relatives I barely knew. At the top she pinned a message that said, for everyone asking what really happened to Grandma's house. And just like that, the lie started growing. Fast. Easy. People love gossip when the truth is quieter than the story. I muted the chat. I did not defend myself. I thought silence was dignity. It took me a while to understand silence could also be a weapon, and my grandmother had already loaded it for me. Within 2 weeks, I felt alone in a way I had never expected. Not because people attacked me to my face. That would have been easier. They just went quiet. Neighbors who had eaten at Vivian's table suddenly had somewhere else to look. People at the grocery store smiled less. Friends of relatives watched me with that careful blank face people use when they don't want to pick a side. Brooke kept posting. She never said my name. She did not have to. Some people see a sick old woman and see an opportunity. Caretakers know exactly what they're doing. The comments filled in the rest. And here is the part one I'm not proud of. I almost gave them what they wanted. One night, I sat at Vivian's kitchen table holding the brass key and seriously thought about signing the house over to Raymond just to make all of it stop. Not because I thought he deserved it. Not because I doubted what Vivian wanted. But because keeping people comfortable was the setting my whole life had been stuck on. I had spent years smoothing things over. I even drafted a text to Belle. Maybe it's easier if I just let them have it. My thumb hovered over send. Then I looked up through the kitchen window. The porch light was on. That same small yellow glow she had left for me 1,000 nights. And something inside me stopped. I deleted the text and wrote a different one. Can we talk? They're saying I manipulated her. I don't know what to do. Bell called within a minute. His voice was calm. Come to my office tomorrow. Before you decide anything, there are things your grandmother wanted you to know. Now is when you need to know them. I barely slept. Walter Bell's office smelled like old paper and burnt coffee. He sat me down, opened a thick folder, and told me what Vivian had done during her last good winter. She had not just written a will. She had built a wall. The will was drafted where his own choices had put him. Later I heard Brooke deleted every post that same night. Every lie. Every sad little speech. Gone. But deleted is not the same as undone. People remembered. I walked out of the county building into a bright, ordinary afternoon and stood on the steps breathing. It was over. Not won. Finished. That is different. My grandmother had reached out from beyond her own death and protected what she wanted protected. And all she had needed from me was the one thing I had spent my whole life struggling to do. Stop fixing everything for everyone else. Let a hard thing be hard. The estate settled in the weeks after that. Papers. Signatures. Final accounts. I kept the house. And yes, the $75,000 Raymond lost did not disappear. Under the will, a forfeited gift fell back into the residuary estate. And that estate came to me. So by suing for a house he was never going to get, my uncle handed me an extra $75,000 on his way out. He reached for everything. And in reaching, gave me more. I did not celebrate that. I put most of it away and tried not to think too much about the frightened man it used to belong to. I kept the brass key on the blue ribbon. For a while I thought about changing all the locks. Then I realized there was no one left to lock out. Raymond was not coming back. So I hung the key on the same hook by the door where it had lived for 40 years. And I left it there. The biggest thing that changed was not the house. Not the money. It was me. For the first time in my adult life, I eased up. I cut back to one job. I stopped taking every double shift. I stopped saying yes before people had even finished asking. I planted Vivian's hydrangeas along the side fence again. In spring, they came back blue. I had people over sometimes. I sat on the porch under the yellow light and did nothing at all, which used to feel impossible. A few cousins reached out quietly after the dust settled. The kind of quiet message people send when they watched something go wrong and want to stand nearer the truth afterward. I did not slam doors. That was never the point. The boundary is simpler than that. The house on Linden Street is mine. Not the family's. Not Raymond's. Not a price to be measured for resale by a man holding a phone. Mine. The way Vivian decided it would be. And I do not owe anyone an explanation for keeping what I was freely given. The door is not locked against people who come kindly. But it is my door now. I grieve her in her house, with her light on. My grandmother never raised her voice in that courtroom. She never had to. She had already said the only thing that mattered in one quiet, underlined line long before the rest of us were ready to hear it. That's my story. One line. One signature. And a porch light I still leave on. If this reminded you that quiet people keep their receipts, and that writing things down can protect the people you love long after you are gone, take this as your sign to get it in writing. If someone you love needs this story, share it.